In 1788, France's national debt hit 56% of GDP. It was considered a catastrophe. It triggered riots, it toppled a monarchy, and it launched a revolution that reshaped the Western world. Today, France's debt stands at 112%, twice the number that destroyed a kingdom. And no one blinks. This is not a coincidence. It is a design feature of the system we built to replace kings. For over 1,000 years, monarchs ruled with visible personal authority. Their wealth was tied to their land, their legacy to their children, their reputation to their name. Power had a face, an address, and a bloodline. Then we tore it all down. We wrote constitutions, we held elections, and we called it freedom. But what if the system that replaced monarchy didn't remove power at all? What if it simply made power invisible and far more dangerous? We replaced kings, and it got worse. In 1593, Henry IV inherited a France devastated by 40 years of religious war. The treasury was empty, the roads were ruined, the peasants were starving. Henry didn't borrow. He didn't print. He appointed the Duke of Sully as finance minister and did something almost unimaginable by modern standards. He cut spending, reduced taxes on farmers, eliminated wasteful court positions, and invested directly in infrastructure, roads, canals, bridges. Within 15 years, France had a surplus. The peasantry was fed. And Henry reportedly declared that every family in his kingdom should be able to afford a chicken in their pot on Sunday. Why did he do this? Was he uniquely moral? Uniquely generous? No. He was an owner. The political philosopher Hans-Hermann Hoppe identified the principle at work. A monarch is not merely a ruler, he is the proprietor of the state. He holds the country the way a landlord holds an estate. His tax base is his revenue. His people are his productive capital. His territory is his inheritance. If you own a house, you repair the roof. You protect the foundation. Because the value of that house is your wealth. Decay costs you. Henry thought in decades because his son would inherit what he built, or what he destroyed. The incentive structure of monarchy naturally selected for long-term stewardship. Now compare this to the system that replaced it. In 2009, the United States faced a financial crisis. The response? A $700 billion bank bailout, money borrowed against future tax revenue. The president who signed it would leave office in months. The Congress that approved it would face re-election in 2 years. The debt? That would be paid by citizens not yet old enough to vote. This is the logic of temporary control, what Hoppe called the tragedy of the temporal commons. A democratic leader does not own the state. He rents it. He holds power for a fixed term, and then he leaves. And just as a tenant has no incentive to renovate a property he'll vacate next year, a democratic politician has no structural reason to think beyond the next election. His incentive is not to build. It is to spend, to promise, to redistribute, to borrow against a future he will not be held accountable for. Henry IV governed for 21 years and left France with a surplus. The average modern democracy changes leadership every 4 to 6 years and has not run a sustained surplus in living memory. This is not a character judgment. This is structural mathematics. Here is a number that should disturb you. In 1815, at the end of the monarchical era, government spending across Europe averaged under 8% of GDP. Kings took their share, openly through declared taxation, and the number was small. Today, democratic governments routinely consume 40 to 50% of national output. Some exceed 60. That is not a gradual drift. That is a structural explosion. And it happened because the democratic system contains a feedback loop with no natural exit. It works like this. A politician must win elections. To win, he must promise benefits. To deliver benefits, he must spend. To spend beyond what taxation provides, he must borrow. And because he won't be in office when the bill comes due, he borrows freely. The next leader inherits the debt and the public's expectation of continued spending. So he borrows more, and the cycle deepens. But here's the part most people miss. This is not just about politicians. You're watching this video on a device you probably financed with credit. You may live in a house secured by a 30-year mortgage. You may carry student debt from a degree that promised you a future. You might pay health insurance premiums that increase every single year. The average medieval English peasant worked approximately 150 days per year. The remaining days were Sundays, holy days, and feast days, roughly half the calendar. The average modern worker in a developed economy works 225 to 250 days per year. We work more. We own less, proportionally, than a 13th century serf, and we do all of this while being told constantly that we are free. This is not an accident. This is the feedback loop operating at the level of an entire civilization. Each generation inherits more debt, more dependency, and less genuine economic autonomy, while the system that produces these outcomes is called liberation. Hoppe's analysis explains why democracies overspend, but it doesn't explain how they fund promises that would have bankrupted any kingdom within a generation. For that answer, we turn to the historian Stephen Mitford Goodson. 1913, a pivotal year, though almost no one alive noticed. In that single year, the United States ratified the income tax, created the Federal Reserve, and began the direct election of senators. 3 structural changes that, taken together, fundamentally rewired the relationship between citizens and their government. Before 1913, U.S. federal spending totaled $715 million. By 1920, just 7 years later, it was $6.4 billion, a 9-fold increase in less than a decade. The mechanism was simple, and Goodson traced its evolution across centuries. When a government needs to spend more than it collects, it issues bonds. These bonds are purchased by central banks, which create the money to buy them. Not from savings, not from reserves, from nothing. This is the engine that powers every modern democratic state, and it is the reason the feedback loop never breaks. Under monarchy, a ruler who debased the currency faced immediate personal consequences. Inflation eroded his own stored wealth. The punishment was direct. Under democracy, the cost is socialized. The politician borrows, the central bank prints, and the public absorbs the cost through inflation, a hidden tax that requires no vote, no legislation, and no consent. In 1913, $1 US purchased what $32 purchases today. Your currency has lost 97% of its value in a single century, not through conquest, not through disaster, through monetary policy. And the institutions responsible, the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank for International Settlements, are not elected. They are not term limited. Most citizens cannot name a single person who runs them. The relationship became symbiotic. Democracy needed banks to fund its promises. Banks needed democracy to legitimize their money creation. Each reinforced the other. And somewhere in this arrangement, the original promise, power to the people, quietly disappeared. Because the people don't control the money supply. They never have. Combine Hoppe's political analysis with Goodson's financial history, and a picture emerges that neither mainstream left nor mainstream right will describe honestly. The system we live under today is not what it claims to be. Political leaders rotate every few years, creating the illusion of accountability. But the financial architecture behind them, the central banks, the regulatory agencies, the supranational institutions, remains permanent. The politicians change, the central banks do not. The parties change, the debt trajectory does not. The slogans change, the extraction does not. Consider a single institution, the Bank for International Settlements, headquartered in Basel, Switzerland. Founded in 1930, it coordinates policy among 63 central banks. It operates with sovereign immunity. Its records cannot be subpoenaed, its officials cannot be prosecuted, and its meetings are closed to the public. You have never voted for anyone at the BIS. You never will. And yet, its decisions about monetary policy, capital requirements, and banking regulation affect the price of everything you buy, the interest rate on everything you borrow, and the value of everything you've saved. Under monarchy, power was concentrated, visible, and personally accountable. You knew who ruled you. You knew where he lived. You knew his name. Under the current system, power is diffused, spread across institutions that operate beyond the reach of any ballot. You cannot vote out the Federal Reserve. You cannot campaign against the monetary policy that erodes your purchasing power every year. You cannot even find the people making the decisions that shape your economic life. The monarch took his share openly. He called it a tax, and everyone knew the rate. The modern system takes its share invisibly, through inflation, through debt, through the slow, imperceptible transfer of wealth from those who produce to those who control the ledger. In 1804, Nathan Mayer Rothschild was asked what he considered the greatest invention in human history. He didn't say the printing press. He didn't say the steam engine. He said compound interest. He understood something most people still don't. The most powerful force in politics is not ideology. It is not military strength. It is not even democracy itself. It is the control of the ledger. The ability to determine who owes what, to whom, and on what terms. Monarchs controlled territory. Modern power controls debt. And a population in debt is a population under control, not by force, but by structure. Not by chains, but by interest payments. This video is not a call to restore monarchy. History does not move backward, and monarchy carried its own failures: madness, incompetence, the genetic lottery of hereditary rule. But here is what monarchy didn't do. It didn't tell you that you were free while tripling your obligations. It didn't claim to serve you while devaluing everything you earned. It didn't create institutions beyond your reach and call it democracy. The current system does all of these things, daily, invisibly, and with your consent, because you were taught that the alternative was worse. Maybe it was. Or maybe you were taught that by the same institutions that benefit from your belief. We are told we live in an age of unprecedented freedom. But freedom without economic sovereignty is just serfdom with better marketing. And the first step to understanding your position is the same as it has always been. The same step that terrified every king and every central banker in history. Open the ledger.